you are, I guess, would you consider yourself an avid hunter? Just really quick, take me, through your background. How long have you been hunting? What do you love about hunting?
I started hunting in, I want to say, fall of 2014. I grew up with a parent in Anchorage and a parent in Girdwood, and I did a fair amount of trail running and plenty of outdoor activities, and both fitness and recreation were big parts of my family's life, but I didn't grow up hunting and fishing. So I would say I'm self-taught. I moved to Juneau, and my partner at the time was a hunter, and I think I had gone out with him once maybe, but got used to having, a fair amount of meat to do what I wanted with, and I'm really um epicurious. I spend a lot of time in the kitchen, a lot of time preparing meals, a lot of time preparing ingredients, roasting, sautéing, drying. And so to have a fair amount of meat that I had gotten was definitely a wonderful privilege that I wanted to keep going. I like going out in the cloak of darkness before dawn in the mist and the beautiful fog that just sits over the channel and Stevens Passage. I like dropping my friends off or being dropped off if I'm a passenger on a boat. And it just all of those aspects are fun. I like putting in the miles. I like the physical hard work. I like cutting things up. I like shooting things. I like shooting guns. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I like cutting animals apart. I like seeing what's inside of them. I like looking at them. I like hauling them. I like taking the animal apart. I like packaging it. I like organizing my freezers. I like cooking. I like making jerky. I like all parts of it. It just combines everything for me into like a good fun sport.
So this last trip, it was in late September with you and Nicholas. Can you walk me through when you guys got there? I know you're out there for hunting deer, but how soon into your trip did all of this happen, and what can you remember from that if you had to describe it to somebody? What happened?
Our trip started relatively early. We met around 6 in the morning. And then after dropping some halibut gear on the way to an area, we have had some pretty bad rain of the period earlier. And so this was kind of one of the first days that was relatively clear and that the marine forecast was going to be the marine forecast was set to be able to go a little farther than sometimes you can go this time of year. And so we took advantage of that. So we ran the boat about 40 minutes south, 45 minutes south, and then anchored and set out into an area that was pretty low terrain. A lot of times we might be putting in more elevation and hiking around in the timber. I'm just getting over a pretty serious injury from April and destroyed my ankle. So I'm just sort of testing out its strength right now. And we stayed on lower elevations. And Nick and I hadn't been hunting together this year. So it was just kind of a nice time for me to do a shakedown of my gear and the boat and make sure my body's working well. And so it was light by the time we started, and we went and proceeded slowly through a combination of brush, some sparse timber, and muskeg, which are just open areas with some shore pines kind of spotted around. Frequently, you'll see deer in the fringe of that. And so they're also easier to walk through. And so we were using we were just meadow hopping really. And we were cutting through a meadow kind of on the upper elevation of the area we were going to be, I would say maybe a third of the time that we would have used for that day, because we had to make sure and account for getting back to the boat and getting back, pulling the halibut gear on our way back. So we probably put in an hour and a half of walking, and we had already approached this meadow, and we were using it to move a little bit, and we were walking directly towards, it was, I wouldn't say an island because there was a meadow on the other side of it. We basically just approached some brushier brush that, to me, it felt like 20 feet. It could have been farther. The area just erupted. It just brushed and erupted. It wasn't like I had a couple of seconds of trying to understand if there was an animal in there and whether or not it was moving and what it might be, there was just no time to make any calculations except register that something was moving towards us quickly. And I think Nick may have had a different vantage point or been able to see something earlier. But from where I was, to me, it was just at 12 o'clock, a large Bruin erupted from the brush and came straight at me. And there was no time to draw a gun. And I've been asked if I had had a 10 mil, or actually instructed that I should have had a 10 mil on my chest. And I've used one on when it's necessary. This was not a situation when I think it would have made any difference at all. But this Bruin erupted from the brush in front of me. It charged straight into me, and I had no time to even think about what made sense except to duck and cover as much as I can. And by quotes, I just mean that like cover me, cover meant like trying to put my head. I mean, you're just instinctual at that point. I don't think there was any amount of training that would have led anyone to behave differently. It was protect yourself like you would if there was a bomb, like you would if there was an earthquake, like any kind of threat. It is you instinctually just crouch. And I remember being completely aware that there was a bear coming at me and that it was making verbal noises. I remember shouting myself for the second or two that I had before it came. I remember shouting through it, not screaming in pain, like help, but just like still shouting to hopefully detract the bear from its appetizing meals. And then I was no longer in its jaws anymore. And I realized within a couple of seconds, I was able to stand up and move back. The bear was still visible, this time slightly to the right. And I turned over my right shoulder and saw Nick. And at that point, he shot at the bear. And I think the first thing that was said between us, well, was Nick said, well, I guess that's done. Or no, we're done with this. I don't remember what that line was, but I remember thinking it was funny because it was kind of, I mean, well, that's over. I mean, it was just such a funny comment. I'd like him to try and retrieve it, but I guess that's over, or something like that. And like, I also remember thinking that like the fact that I saw humor in that meant that I was probably cognitive. I mean, like I wasn't destroyed. And so I think in any situation when you've been mauled or in some sort of extreme physical pain, if it ends, like you jump up. And at that point, I had been walking and, taken some steps back and recovered myself. I still had my backpack on. I think Nick said it may have been on the back. I mean, again, I wasn't watching, I was just feeling and hearing. And I knew that at that point, I felt fine. Like, you are doing your automatic emotional and physical checks. And with the exception, well, that's not true. I did have my vision was impaired because I just had sheets of blood coming cascading down my face and it was sticking into my eyes and I have contacts and it just became really difficult to see. And I wouldn't say I panicked, but I was concerned at that moment that I could possibly be losing a lot of blood. And I don't think that the injuries were painful enough to really have those be the biggest concern. My concern was that there were some invisible or unobservable injuries that were going to prevent me from either surviving or continuing on. But really within a couple of seconds and some brief communication with Nick and walking a little bit more, I really felt fine. And at some point, the blood did kind of dry off, and I had a hat on that got kind of ripped up during things, but was still on my head. And I think that in combination with the hair drying and just, I didn't want to, neither one of us wanted to upset the like, I don't even know what you'd call it when it wasn't a bandage, but we didn't want to upset anything that might start bleeding again. And I didn't have any injuries from my waist down. And I think based on where we were, if we had called, we were out of cell reception. So calling or using the InReach, which I had on and we both know how to use, at that point, we would have had to initiate a rescue with an SOS feature on another device and then wait. And at that point, we could have been to the beach and gotten ourselves back to safety.
when it was happening, what was like, was your adrenaline kicked in so much? Did you even feel anything, or when did it kick in that the pain started and you realized like, oh, I just got mauled by a bear?
It was really too quickly to be able to even prepare to be concerned, prepare to be anxious. It was so fast that I had to react immediately. I do remember it being on me and chewing on my head a little bit. So I don't think I was frightened any more than understanding that not, this may be the end of things. It was frightening, yes, but there wasn't any period afterward where I felt in sheer terror, because we had to evacuate that area. There was a potentially injured bear. We knew there was definitely an aggressive bear or a bear that could be aggressive, that we needed to evacuate that area. And so to get out of that particular zone, we would have already been one third of the way back to the boat. So I mean, I remember being thankful that I'm alive, but also like pragmatic. What's the next step? Let's get to the hospital. Let's figure that out and, deal with the rest of life. So I didn't go into any severe shock periods. I cried a little bit once on the phone with my aunt when she was asking me a bunch of questions, but I think it may have been I live alone. I think it may have been different if I had children and a partner that I had come home to and their overwhelming concern, but I had good friends in the hospital and I've had great support since then, but I didn't have any sort of a big traumatic PTSD period. My doctor today during a wound check asked about nightmares, and I haven't had those either. I mean, that doesn't mean it wasn't that traumatic. I think I'm just an outlier. Yeah, I don't think so. I know I am. I've been through situations like this before. I am an outlier.
Once you got to the hospital, what were the extent of your injuries? What all happened?
I had two series of injuries. I had some injuries on my left hand and I had some injuries all within my hairline. And that is the weird part to me, that my head is so small compared to the jaws of that bear that I looked into, that to have the kind of damage, to do the kind of gashes that I had on my skull, that none of them were in my face, over my eyes, nose, lips, ears, any of the, neck, heaven forbid. And that my left hand, which is not my dominant hand, was the one that got torn up, and that at this, no bones were broken, is really the more remarkable part. But I have three sets of staples in my head. Two of them are large staples and large gashes. One of them smaller, but smaller staples. And then I've got a series of sutures towards the base of my head. Really, the discomfort was the needle being put all over my hairline and head to be able to numb it. And honestly, my friend Colin, that was in the hospital, who gets squeamish easily, like watching his face was the only way I could really tell what was happening with me. And he looked very uncomfortable, but there was really nothing to be alarmed or concerned about. The hospital staff was amazing. They took great care of me. I probably had six people waiting as soon as I walked into the doors. One put an IV on me. One started taking care of my head wound. One started taking care of I had to have some of my clothes cut off because my glove was like congealed and stuck to my hand. So that was really the worst part, is the hand. I mean, the cuts in my head look gross. There's a large piece of everything above the skull, like a kind of tongue shape that was flapping off. And then the gashes over the other parts of the head weren't small or insignificant. And they were sore, but the hand's been really painful and definitely kept me up for a couple nights, and then got infected soon after that. So I had to go in for a higher level of antibiotics and some more painkillers. And I'm not quite in the clear there. I have to now go get an MRI to see what the infection is. And yeah, I'm a little concerned about that. I'm definitely one-handed right now, and more than being emotionally disturbed, it's just really frustrating.
With this happening to you, is this going to deter you from getting back out there hunting?
I don't think so. Things change frequently, so I am pretty stoic and unfazed by trauma, and but my reactions have changed. Like, yeah, like I can still feel there's a nice bump here. It's gonna take a while for things to be totally comfortable, but I was on the phone with a reporter within the first week or so and definitely felt like I wasn't really sure. Like I had no need to go back out. I know that I'm not going to be able to physically hold a rifle for a little bit. But now, a week and a half out, like I'd love to go back out. I mean, it is such a great sport that combines so many different elements that I really enjoy. I absolutely anticipate going back out after a recovery because also, I mean, I think that bear would have killed me. It should have killed me. And so I think it probably just wants me to keep hunting. I think that's what its plan was.
All right, Nicholas, we're going to start with you now. Take me through your account of what happened that day with Amanda once you guys got to Admiralty Island. As she mentioned, you guys were maybe about an hour and a half in, and you were, she said, kind of like behind you. From your perspective, what was going through your mind? What were you seeing?
Yeah, so I was like kind of behind her, like quartering a little bit to her left, I would imagine. And that bear roared, and I didn't know where it was initially. And I took a step to the left to get away from her. So we had some separation. I remember that. And then I saw it kind of just rear up for a second, not like it stood on its legs, just like popped up to see what was what. And it could see me through this slot that was in between the tree line because it was in the tree line where it was. And there's brush on the outside of the tree line, and it was in the brush on the outside of the tree line. And and there was a slot between that brush and the blueberry kind of mound of bushes that Amanda was standing next to. And it came down that slot. And when it got to about like 8 feet or 6 feet, I don't know, like right in there, I thought I was going to get it because it looked right at me. And then it whipped, it was just a notice that Amanda was there. And that's why she got blindsided. It just like blasted her and she had no time. And I reflexively at that time took a step back because I was like, oh, I'm about to get it. And I stepped into a muskeg pond and went to my knees on my left. And then I got up and I racked around. And by that time, it was gone. So you can figure out how long that was, like 3 seconds, maybe. I mean, 4 seconds if I'm really dawdling, but I think it was more like three. And it had ran back to kind of where it started. And then it whipped around and I put the crosshairs right on the middle of its chest and pulled the trigger at like 20 yards. And my gun has a muzzle brake and it is super loud and it just ran off. And I don't know if I hit it or it just ran off at the noise, but I didn't check.
Adrenaline
And
wise,
that's how fast it happened. Just like 1/1000, and on the 2/1000, you need to be doing something because you're either going to get hit or your partner's getting hit. And at 5/1000 or 6/1000, the whole thing is over.
so when it all was said and done, the bear ran off. What happened next? What was going through your mind at that point?
I just looked at Amanda. She had blood streaming down her face. I said, we need to get out of here. At a minimum, we need to put like 50, 75, 80 yards away from where this is at. We need to walk over here. And we did that. And then she's right. The first thing I said is, okay, we're done. We're done. Let's go home. And so then we walked probably a little ways and I looked, we just peeled back her hat for a little bit. And I said, well, I only see a little bit because I couldn't see the larger gashes, which are covered in her hair and matted in her hair, which helped cauterize it, I think. And then we walked back, and it sucked because it was kind of brushy to get there. So it took us about an hour and change. I don't know, at least an hour. Could have been an hour and a half, but it took us a while.
Was there any nervousness that on your way back to the boat that you were going to run into that bear again, or at that point you were just, let's go, you were in fight or flight mode, let's get her to a hospital?
No, that bear ran directly uphill, and we're going directly downhill. And the bear was either piled up someplace or was sufficiently scared. Either way, that's fine with me. I don't know. I didn't go check. I don't know what happened to the bear. Um, No, and we were making noise. Hey, let's go. Like we're making noise. We're not going to startle another one on the way out. And then we got out of there, and it's like, all right, paddle as fast as you can in that kayak out to the boat, and go get the boat, run in, and get all the stuff, and let's get out of here.
When
So
did
I
you
mean, go ahead.
when did you realize the severity of her injuries?
So I knew it right away. There's blood everywhere. Like I didn't know that she had had the larger lacerations until she sent me the pictures, which made me squeamish, and I wasn't even there. Um, she said her hand was messed up, and so I was like, all right, well, let's just keep the glove on. I don't think I even said anything. I'm like, all right, well, let's go, and we need to get out of here. I mean, I've taken a Coast Guard helicopter rescue, a Coast Guard helicopter ride before, and while they're great, they take a long time, and so you're probably better to just start moving. And also, I was concerned initially that she was going to fall into shock, and so we were kind of having a conversation until she told me to shut up. I don't feel like talking anymore. Let's go.
Had it occurred through either one of your minds? I'm not too familiar about what hunting. I imagine when you go hunting, you're in groups or with a partner, but did it ever cross your mind, or did you wonder, what if I was by myself? Amanda, had you thought, man, what would have happened if Nicholas wasn't there?
No, I don't think I would have been hunting out of cell reception by myself. And Nick and I have had a pretty traumatic, for me, it was a lot more traumatic than this bear encounter before, 4 years before. And they should have been hibernating and it wasn't.
I was also pretty gun shy about hunting by myself after that encounter, and I typically don't hunt by myself uh, at all anymore. Really, yeah, there's been a few times here and there where I've gone, but for the most part, it's I go with somebody. It's just not worth it.
I would say don't be intimidated by this. It was really a freak situation. We couldn't have prevented it. We couldn't have prepared any better than we were. And it's probably not going to happen to you. I think more often than not, people err on the side of being way too concerned and anxious and prevent that from letting them have a real experience with life and in the outdoors rather than they're being too reckless. I'm in that camp. I grew up in brown bear territory and we would carry bear spray, etc. But there's a lot of people who are hikers that probably think guns are silly and shouldn't carry them. And I think there's a lot of activities where you don't need guns. But I think understanding that there are so many different kind of user groups in our state, and you cannot be in one user group and really judge another without understanding it. I mean, there are people who think that we shouldn't have disturbed the bears, and there are people. I mean, there's all different kinds of ways to approach every different sport or every different activity. And I think more than anything is to understand that like you don't know everything and you don't know other people's experience. And it's so easy. I mean, one of our favorite sports in the state is to be an armchair finger pointer at other people's misadventures. And I think that shouldn't persuade you from doing what you want to do.
It's been a little more than a week now. How are you feeling today, recovery wise, and your pain level?
I'm still going to be using pain assistance at night. I still have a fair amount of throbbing in my hand. And until I understand, I have an MRI scheduled for next week to sort of make sure that I don't have any infection. And until I'm out of the clear, I'm going to be a little nervous and concerned.
Is there anything else that I missed or anything else that you guys would like to mention or add or share regarding your story?
It was really fast, and yeah, it was just really fast. And
Yeah.
Amanda didn't have any chance. She was I was the initial target because it could see down that slot, and it was looking at me. And when it got to that junction, it just was like surprised that she was there, and then just blasted her, and she had no chance because I don't even think she saw it because it was like a depression almost, or not even a depression. There was just brush in the way. I didn't see. I don't remember. It went so fast that I don't remember it from when it reared up to look to 10 or 8 feet or whatever it is. I don't remember it covering that. And I looked it up on Google Maps, and I did the distance function, and it was what, like 25 yards, maybe like 78 feet is what it said. And I'm ballparking it, but it was like, that's about right. What I remember. And so it covered 65 of those feet or 68 of those feet. And I didn't even see it. And I knew it was there. And then it covered the last three.
Hearing it or seeing it until it was like directly coming at me 20 feet in front of me.
Because I was downhill, we were walking quartering, and so when the bear charged, you were uphill in between me and the bear, but I could see where it was coming from, but I couldn't see it in the meantime. But then like once it broke out of that brush, it was like it was looking at me and then was like, "Oh, you're right there. You're even closer." And that's why it smoked you and not me.
Yeah, it turns out I'm not a tasty snack though.
You're not a tasty snack, and I would also say that I don't think, just from my experience with brown bears, I don't think me racking around right next to it, they don't like that metal on metal sound. And if it had lasted a second longer, I'm in a situation where I have to shoot this thing off of her, which is scary. It's even more scary because I'm going to try not and kill her at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Have you guys had a chance to see each other since you've been back and kind of things have settled down a little bit, just physically in person?
Yeah,
Well,
I've
I
seen
need
it.
help. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've been over to her house a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not totally self-sufficient. So I'm opening my doors to a few close friends that can make food and help me clean. And I mean, I can't really like wash the right side of my body. I mean, Nick is not doing that, to be clear, but like, I need enough help that I have a fair amount of people coming in and out, and Nick is certainly one of them.
Man. Well, you guys, it's a pretty incredible story, and I'm so grateful that you are both here to be able to tell it and to share it. And for being brave and resilient. And you don't hear about a lot of female hunters just getting mauled and surviving to tell the story. So,
Yeah, and on that note, there's a lot of us out there that are totally competent, and I think you men listening, like, take note. They don't have to be your girlfriend and wife. Like, there's a lot of us that are solid. Like, put us into your partnership. Everybody needs partners to go hunting, and there's a lot of women out there that are very competent.
I'm just glad that you were able to be here, and I'm grateful for both of you for taking the time out to chat with us and to tell your story. As crazy and as wild as it is, it's pretty amazing. So thank you.
Thank you.